DC's Peacemaker, blown up into the mainstream thanks to the 2021 film, The Suicide Squad, and his own hit HBO Max series, both made by James Gunn. WWE legend John Cena perfectly captures the character's blend of brutal action along with offbeat satire, but much before his boom in the live-action universe, Christopher Smith carved himself a strong appeal of his own in the world of comics. Starting from Charlton Comics and later at DC, his stories have always blended pulp fiction and dark humor, unlike any other. The chaotic history of this character in the page sees him face a wide array of opponents, ranging from evil, corrupt businessmen to extremist cults, and even weird supernatural beings, to name a few, who shaped his path to achieving peace at any cost. With that being said, for the new fans intrigued by the DC antihero, we bring to you 7 such iconic and bizarre villains that have had a history of facing Peacemaker. Here we go. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Wolfgang Schmidt, the White Dragon. To kick things off, we have the most psychologically affecting one, Peacemaker. The villain represents the pure evil and ideological hatred that Peacemaker is fighting against. We're talking about Wolfgang Schmidt, aka the White Dragon. His origins are as dark as you can realistically imagine. Long before he was a villain in a costume, using the name the White Dragon as his pseudonym, Wolfgang Schmidt was a high-ranking officer in the Nazi Schutzstaffel and was directly responsible for the torture and deaths of tens of thousands of innocent people in concentration camps. When the war ended, he went into hiding and decided to build a new life, and even had a son. But when his horrific past was finally exposed, he chose to take his own life rather than face justice. Here's the amazing twist. Who was his son? It was a young boy named Christopher Smith, who would grow up and become Peacemaker. Now, this twist makes their conflict incredibly personal, goes beyond your normal rivalry between a hero and a villain. Here, it's a virtuous son who staunchly rejects his father's evil legacy, which is fueled by hatred and extremism. But its impact hits on a psychological level for Peacemaker, as the rivalry doesn't end even after the White Dragon's death. For years that follow, Christopher is often troubled and tormented at times by the visions of his father, as his hallucinations of the SS officer and his black uniform linger on in his mind. This vision keeps criticized and tries to push him into embracing that Nazi ideology. It's very well considered to be the manifestation of Christopher's deepest trauma and his greatest fear, which is that he might become the very monster he swore he would destroy. It's almost like a scar that has decided to be imprinted in Chris's mind. Wolfgang Schmidt, aka the White Dragon, symbolizes the poisonous ideology that his estranged son Peacemaker is always compelled to fight against. Judo Master, Hadley Rip Jagger. Hadley Rip Jagger, a master martial artist, goes by the name Judo Master, and is a well-known enemy of Peacemaker. He aligns himself with the deadly parasitic aliens called the Butterflies and their cause, which is to infiltrate and live among humans. This character has gained major recognition from his appearance in the HBO Max series and is portrayed by actor Na Lee. This was the first live-action adaptation of the Judo Master character from the comics, an obvious change from the initial source material for the character. The series portrayed him in a green suit instead of the traditional red and white. This is said to be a deliberate change and a thoughtful one, so as to better align with the cultural background of actor Na Lee, who is of Vietnamese descent, instead of the original costume that featured a Japanese flag for a white American actor. Now, Judo Master as a character is aggressive, quiet, and brutally efficient. He's quick to pick fights and attack anyone he considers an enemy. He's also shown to be petty and vindictive, and can go so low as to mock his opponents while battling them. But his skills are what make him a considerable threat, because as his name implies, he's an expert at martial art and masterfully trained in jiu-jitsu, judo, karate, Krav Maga, and capoeira. His abilities extend beyond hand-to-hand combat. He's an expert acrobat and uses his agility, speed, and skill to use his opponent's strength against them. Along with being a martial artist, he's also an expert marksman, capable of using firearms. The character of Judo Master goes through a roller coaster if we follow along his lifespan in the comics. He and Peacemaker have teamed up once as a part of the Living Assault Weapons team, but later on, in another iteration of him, this one in the iconic Kingdom Come series. He is also shown to have teamed up with Magab, but the character is once shown to have met its end in the classic Infinite Crisis series at the hands of Bane, putting an end to the iconic Judo Master. Dr. Zinzen. Dr. Zinzen initially appeared as an opponent for Batman in Detective Comics, issue number 354, all the way back in 1966. He was, however, reintroduced later on in the 1988 miniseries for the DC character Peacemaker. When talking of the character, Dr. Zinzen, he's a skilled magician with powers who obtain his abilities through Tibetan rites and rituals. These mystical powers of his include controlling and manipulating the minds of both people and animals. Along with that, he's also a master of illusion. capable of creating and altering realistic illusions in the minds of his victims in real time. Going beyond his magical ability, Zinzen is a sophisticated criminal mastermind. In the Peacemaker comic series, he has used his manipulative skills to such an extent that he can be considered one of the DC Universe's greatest hypnotists for trying to ignite a global conflict by causing a civil war in the Soviet Union. But he eventually meets his demise in this series and has not been used in DC Comics since. This brief revival was part of DC Comics' effort to integrate characters from Charlton Comics, which they had recently purchased, into their own continuity. However, although the Peacemaker series was highly praised, Dr. Zinzen's inclusion was seen as a questionable move. It's viewed more as a weak point due to its considerable harmful anti-Asian portrayal. And this was especially apparent in his initial appearance, because despite being a white character, his looks, along with his attire, contributed to reinforcing negative stereotypes about the Asian community. While the series he was a part of was considered a successful run, Dr. Zinzen's role was problematic, and he has since been retired. The Cobra Cult. The Cobra Cult, who are also known as the followers of Kali Yuga, is a dangerous international terrorist organization committed to bringing about an apocalyptic new world order, which they like to call the Kali Yuga, or the Age of Chaos. While individual, they may not seem the most formidable. Their powers as a collective unit, which involve their persistent, fanatical zeal, and a massive arsenal of weapons, make them a significant threat. The origins of this cult are ancient, and so naturally, it was a secretive, religious order from the Himalayan region. Their core beliefs are a result of a prophecy that a destined leader of theirs, called the Naga, who would guide them with. This leader was said to be one of a set of twins, both of whom were located by this cult, which ended up abducting one of the infants, named Jeffrey Burr, to raise him as their living god. Now, under his leadership, this cult, once lived in isolation, transformed itself into a modern and well-armed global network to cause worldwide chaos. Their members are fanatical criminals who fight with absolute commitment to their cause and would rather die or even commit suicide than be captured. This tactic has allowed the organization to maintain its secrecy while continuing operations for centuries. The Cobra Cult also has a structured hierarchy in its functioning, with low-level operatives who are categorically called the Lanceheads and high-ranking officers who are the Nagas. Peacemaker has encountered the Cobra Cult as a member of the Suicide Squad, under the oversight of Task Force X, as their goal of mass annihilation by any means necessary is the exact kind of extremist threat that Peacemaker is tasked to deal with. The Cobra Cult's widespread operations on an international level, along with their adaptability to use cutting-edge modern technology, have also brought them under the spotlight of the DC Universe. Emil Bourc. Emil Bourc is a standout character in comic book history, as the very first villain Peacemaker ever faced. He appears in issue number 40 in the Fightin' 5 series, all the way back in 1966. Bourc is a powerful international army who operates without any allegiance or allies. He sells weapons to anyone, and often to both sides of the same conflict, as long as they have enough money for him. He lacks superpowers as such. The actual threat he possesses comes from his immense wealth, global influence, and an absolute lack of ethics. His business practices can directly contribute to starting war, fueling them for his own profit. His first appearance itself summarizes the evil intentions of this character, where he's seen arming two South American nations at war with one another. By deliberately stoking tensions in order to simply increase his arms set, he maintained a vast arsenal for himself, including advanced military like jet planes and helicopters. Peacemaker, he was operating under his villain identity of Christopher Smith, was in Geneva, and was working to settle the same border dispute that Bourc was profiting. Chris was tasked with investigating the arms dealer as part of his greater mission of achieving peace. The conflict between the two culminates in a final confrontation, where Peacemaker ultimately kills off Bourc by using the villain's own weaponry against him, destroying his escape craft, and emerging as the victor against his first real villain. As the original antagonist, Emil Bourc lays out a key dynamic against Peacemaker, which also shapes the latter's character, as well as his objectives of fighting evil and corruption. Bourc is the real-time embodiment of all those things Peacemaker was created to fight. Vigilante, Adrian Chase. In the comics, Adrian Chase, aka Vigilante, is seen as a tragic and antagonistic figure to Peacemaker, as compared to his quirky iteration in the HBO Max series. He's a complicated anti, frequently crosses paths with Peacemaker as an opposition. Now, Adrian Chase was originally a district attorney, a strong believer in the law and the justice system. But after a gang that retaliated against his judgment once by murdering his whole family, his faith in the law was completely shattered. He was drowning in grief and had a strong desire for vengeance. As a result, he adopted the identity of Vigilante, adopting a set of high-tech weapons, along with his skills in martial arts, in order to unleash a lethal war on crime. However, this immediately put him on par with Peacemaker, whose equally violent methods were driven by clashing ideologies. and this rivalry results in significant confrontations between the two. In one very pivotal story, a case of terrorist hijacking brought both Vigilante and Peacemaker into conflict, and this resulted in Peacemaker shooting and killing a man wearing the Vigilante costume. This event pushed the already unstable Adrian Chase over the edge and caused him to turn even more ruthless. But their most famous clash was a brutal fight which was broadcast live on television, and during this battle, Peacemaker brutally beat down Chase and unmasked him on air, which exposed his long-kept secret identity to the world. This destroyed Adrian's life, turning him into a wanted fugitive and forcing him to completely abandon his stint as the Vigilante. But even before the tragic reveal, his life was getting more troubling and intense. His brief set of attempts saw him return to a normal life as a judge, repeatedly pulled back into the violence under the Vigilante identity. This cycle ultimately broke him. Eventually, with him being unable to move on in life or even cope, Adrian Chase took his own life, and it's a dark, bleak end for the character of Vigilante, who would go down as an iconic foil to Peacemaker. Mr. Blaze, and then the Lava Man. From one of the more bizarre threats from Peacemaker's original comic run comes Mr. Blaze and the Lava Man. Now, the former are literally beings that are made of molten lava, which makes them incredibly dangerous as well as seamless. Facing any conventional attack, bullets and knives simply melt when in contact with their fiery bodies. And in offense, the Lava Men can shoot molten projectiles at their enemies. Their creator, Mr. Blaze, was initially a clumsy stage magician and a mere fire eater, mocked for his failed attempts, which often resulted in him severely burning himself. Now, as a desperate man with untapped technological skills, he saw an opportunity when he learned of a new flame-proofing formula invented by the diplomat-turned-scientist Christopher Smith, Peacemaker's real self. As a result, Blaze raided a chemical lab, stole the formula, and learned how to replicate it. A theory suggests that he decided to apply this fireproof solution by traveling to a volcanic island, where he possibly created the native Lava Man. Now, with his new allies and his immunity to fire, he established a solid set of operations. In the meantime, Peacemaker, in pursuit of the thief of his invention, arrived on the same island and found himself completely outmatched by those lava-fueled creatures. To win this unique fight, Peacemaker had to rely on a scientific quirk. He developed an absolute zero cannon, which was a new weapon specifically designed to counter the extreme heat. Using the principle of elemental advantage, Cannon's intense cold was able to neutralize the fiery threat of the Lava Men and Mr. Blaze. While Peacemaker defeated Blaze, the Lava Men themselves were just contained and left inside their volcanic home as a threat beneath the earth. Outro. And that's our video for today. We hope you had a great time learning about the bizarre and convoluted set of opponents faced by Peacemaker in the comics. The mixture of humor as well as action-packed stories gets enhanced when Peacemaker is forced to come face-to-face with such deadly beings of all kinds. With the HBO Max series that had brought the character to everyone's notice, it seems like the currently running Season 2 of Peacemaker is back and better in every sense of the word, with unexpected twists and turns that could see the storylines play out in the larger DC cinematic universe. How so? Well, only time and James Gunn will tell. Now, as always, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share it with your friends, and comment on who your favorite Peacemaker villain is. Do let us know how pumped you are for Season 2 of Peacemaker. Finally, don't forget to subscribe to Marvelous Videos for more such content. Till then, take care and ciao. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.